defined in some way. And some of the way in which culture has been defined is not good. Has been defined as Satan, has been defined as witchcraft, has been defined as paganism, has been defined as sin, you know? That's how culture has been painted. But we look at cultural heritage as the legacy of the cultural resources and intangible attributes of a group or society that is inherited from past generation. Not all that happened in the past is considered as heritage. But what is considered as heritage is that which has been selectively considered by a specific community to be of beneficial value for some reason, to be of beneficial value to that particular community. Even some of the reasons may appear ridiculous to the people outside that community. We have seen some cultural practices which sometimes when we go to present, especially as I told you in some of the videos that we have seen for the project, where someone is performing a ritual, people simply laugh and say, what is that person doing? But to the person, to that particular, it is meaningful. It has a very importance to the survival of that particular group, that particular individual. So, in the cultural heritage, we look at three things. One is the tangible culture, where we have buildings, monuments, landscapes, books, works of art, and artifacts. So, this tangible culture physically can touch, feel. But also we have the intangible culture, such as the folklore, traditions, language, knowledge, social cultural norms, cultural practices, aesthetic spiritual beliefs, expressions, and other aspects. And of the first and the second, this second category, which is intangible culture, is even the one which is the hardest to preserve. Then the third component is the natural heritage. So the natural heritage constitutes of biodiversity and landscapes and sites of significance. So this includes plants and animals, and also geological elements. So these constitute what we call the natural heritage. The most important point that I'd like to make is that the three are closely intertwined. The tangible is closely intertwined with the intangible, and the intangible closely intertwined with the natural. That is very important to point out, because in the practice, for example, in practicing a ritual, like what we have seen before on the video, there are some plant species that have been used. There are some words which have been said. So all the three, the natural, the tangible, and intangible are interconnected. So that's why I'd like to mention and introduce that instead of simply mentioning cultural heritage, it would be appropriate to mention biocultural heritage. There has been before proposals that it is very important to conserve culture along with natural resources, because you cannot, one is connected to the other. One is connected to the other. So, the biocultural heritage conservation demands conservation for four main reasons. Why do we need to conserve cultural heritage, or what we are calling the biocultural heritage? Reason number one, it is moral. Morally, these resources, the heritage, has been found there, has been handed over to us. We are custodians. So morally, we don't have a right to decide and say this one should go away, but simply to serve as custodians on the moral ground. The second ground is the social cultural reason, where we have the significance of artifacts are interpreted and are helping to serve as a backdrop to socio-economic, political, ethnic, religious, philosophical values. Without them, we cannot have the socio-cultural identity. We cannot have the socio-cultural identity. So they serve the socio-cultural purpose. The third component is aesthetic. Aesthetic function is that we derive pleasure, we derive, for example, if we have seen even in the medical field, someone is sick and is taken for a drive in the park or to look at the certain lands and comes back when he's healed. We have seen some people when they are stressed, They go walk down to the river and they just listen to the water flowing. We have seen, so that kind of and that kind of value is what we call the aesthetic value. And then the last one, which unfortunately many people consider as the most important, is the economic. How do you get money from from the conservation of heritage? And there is a lot, as I will be explaining later, that you can benefit economically through the preservation of biocultural heritage. So, we see that climate crisis affects biocultural heritage in a number of ways. Already, some of these have been documented, but just to highlight a few examples, each particular category of the heritage is affected in one way or the other. A tree that is of cultural significance will be affected differently by climate change from a stone that is of cultural significance. So we look at, for example, some of the sites that have been documented already, and in the context of climate change, the effects mainly manifest in the form of floods, landslides, and in some cases, we have, for example, acidic rain. So in each of these ones, you'll find that they are affected in different ways. So that's why it is important that when we are considering the preservation and the mitigation measures that we put in place, we consider a case-by-case basis, because one may not be able to apply to the other. But why is it important to consider that the cultural heritage should be put at a priority compared to the others? We know climate change affects many other aspects of our welfare, but the reasons that I have advanced here, I'll just give a summary. There are 8 reasons why we should be able to consider cultural heritage or bicultural heritage as important to safeguard against the effects of climate change. Number 1, bicultural heritage is often ignored in the discussion of climate change, impacts, mitigation, and adaptation. We usually don't mention about it. We only talk about the effects on the economy, effects on agriculture. But biocultural heritage is ignored. Even when you look at it, the effects, different papers that have talked about the effects of climate change, they don't mention biocultural heritage. They not mention it means it is ignored. Number 2, much of the biocultural heritage is immovable and hence difficult for exit conservation. It is not like Uwa, where we see a certain species being threatened in a certain area and we translocate it to another. But for this one, there is no way you can move a certain chitagata from Rwenzori and bring it to Kampala, say you want to preserve it. It is immovable, and that means it is difficult and should be given priority. Number 3, the biocultural heritage is non-replicable and non-replaceable. When we are studying the communities in the Rwenzori about park community relations, they are providing alternatives to livelihoods. Someone who is going to a certain site in the park to appease or perform a certain cultural ritual, giving that person an alternative source of livelihood or another source of income or constructing a road doesn't really replace that purpose of going to. So, then number 4 also, we see that they intertwined. The natural resources and the cultural resources cannot be done in isolation. I know who are right from the beginning, the conservation was mainly on biodiversity. It is only after, I think, early 2000, with the work of Mark Infield and Kimboro, finding out the close association between the Bahima and the Angola cow. Then later, work that was done by FFI in Rwenzori was on the culture and conservation. So eventually it was realized that actually these two are, and that's what should be emphasized actually by UWA and even Ministry of Tourism or Wildlife and Antiquities. because it will be much easier and important to conserve the two in tandem. Number 5, they are perceived as having economic benefits. They are not perceived as having economic benefits. As I have mentioned, culture is in that one is useless. We no longer need it. They have to go to school, study, speak English, and that's all. But, so that is another reason why it is at risk. Also, the preservation of some biocultural heritage and the methods of its preservation seem not to make sense from the scientific perspective. So if you ask some of the questions here, from a scientific perspective of what these rituals are associated with, you will not get answers. What is the logic that when they go and collect leaves from a certain plant, they should move without looking back? It's for the medicine to work. So from the scientific perspective, they really don't, and that is why they need to be preserved. It's not everything is science. Not everything should be considered as science. Okay? And then also, the information about biocultural heritage says is orally passed from generation to generation. That's why it's important. The documentation is very important. But when it is passed orally, there is a risk of distortion. There is a risk of misrepresentation. There is a risk of even totally being lost. And also, the biocultural heritage developed through a complex process of a long time, but can easily be lost. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, because my time is running fast, there are 5 proposals that I have made on the practical approaches for preservation of biocultural heritage. Number 1 is to identify, document, and profile a biocultural heritage, all the biocultural heritage. These ones which have been mentioned here in the Rwenzori, I mapped out a few in the national park, sometime back. These ones are an additional 9, but there are many others. So it is work in progress. There's still so a lot that needs to be documented. And maybe in terms of documentation, I'd like to tell some of the elders here, I think there is need to have some kind of intellectual property, because some of these rituals, we have seen some cases whereby you ask an elder, explain because you need, but it becomes, unless you explain hard and convince, but the person, that's why even the African traditional knowledge does not move far, because there is that kind of secrecy. Okay? So among the elders, there's need to be able to open up, to document some of these things. 2, to promote the roles of cultural heritage in the current socio-cultural development context. That one is very important. Promote, talk about them, indicate that they are not having any problem with the current development, and also that we can be able to develop socio-economically through the provision of biocultural heritage. 3 is to develop a climate crisis-induced disaster mitigation adaptation plan for each site based on the specific impacts. So already here there are proposals that plans have been made. So for each site they will require to have a plan. Then 4, when we look at the history of cultures, around 50,000 years already the culture has evolved. But when you look at science, which has replaced culture. Science is something that has come of recent, about 500 years ago. And when we talk about religion, also the same. Religion is just something that is recent. Assuming Jesus was existing today, he would be celebrating around 2050 or 60 years. So, but when you compare our cultures that have been in existence 50,000 years, change, so that we can be able to see how we will reconcile the different mindsets, the different understandings among the three things: culture, science, and religion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Munza, for sharing with us a long discussion, a very good discussion. Biology or the natural sciences, then culture. It's a complex web that we all have to pay attention to in all our interventions. For the practical steps that you have suggested to us, I think we are taking note of them. Whoever can do their part in making sure that our cultural heritage and the natural heritage, tangible, intangible, and mixed, is saved, let's do our part. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is a small protocol issue that I need to bring our attention to. You will see that on the program we have a presentation from the British Council. This presentation was supposed to come after our plenary, because the British Council is a very esteemed partner on this project. They are the ones that are helping us to make sure that what we are doing is made possible through their cultural protection fund. And so it is very important that they listen to all of us after the plenary. However, the protocol issue I want to bring to us is there was a small adjustment, because
representatives from international, local, and cultural organizations, friends of cultural heritage, all that are here today suffices, and so good afternoon, everybody. So I'm really pleased to be here. You know, when the grant first came out, we were not, I hope I'm not too muffled. Am I clear enough?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So when this opportunity came up with the British Council, we were really pleased about this because cultural heritage for us in the British Council has only been something that is very clearly possible in countries like Kenya, in Ethiopia, within the East African region, of which we are a part of a cluster. And so an opportunity to do something with this program was something that pleased us very much, and we were especially pleased that CCFU was able to put forward a strong proposal and that it was acceptable. So allow me to just give you a brief outline of what this journey has been like from our perspective. So this project is enabled by a cultural protection fund, and this fund is delivered in partnership between the British Council, insects, outdoors. Sorry again. So it's delivered between the British Council and the UK government. There is a department wonderful outdoors. So this is a partnership that is delivered between the British Council and the UK government's department. In the last 3 years, the fund distributed over £25 million for 51 projects across 12 target countries. So in 2020, the fund launched a pilot in East Africa, focusing on heritage at risk due to climate change. We did hear that 2019 was the hottest year, so you can see where this would come from. So there's a high demand for the round, and we received 48 expressions of interest, and 21 were invited to make a full application. 5 projects were awarded across Kenya, Ethiopia, Tanzania, and Uganda. In Uganda, INTU, in partnership with the Cross-Cultural Foundation of Uganda, were awarded a grant to protect important tangible and intangible and East Africa. So, on behalf of the wider Cultural Protection Fund team in Uganda and in the UK, as well as in East Africa, like I mentioned, I congratulate CCFU and INTU for your achievement in delivering this project together. And I thank all of you for honoring this invitation. I know that it's not the time to be coming into spaces and gathering together, but I do acknowledge what you have done, and I thank you on behalf of the team at the British Council for making this time. And I do wish you a good afternoon as you enjoy the rest of the sessions, including the plenary that will be coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Country Director Mugabi, for those remarks. And at CCFU, we are very honored to be partnering with the British Council and the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have 3 presentations in a row, and these are going to be experience-sharing presentations. The first one is going to come from Alur. Right Honorable Vincent Ochaya, the Prime Minister of Alur Kingdom, is going to be sharing with us what this project has looked to him as a person, but also to them as a kingdom, and to their Alur community, and possibly to the Luo community as a whole. And then from Zanzibar, we are going to be hearing about how the Stone Town is being preserved, and what the Zanzibar Stone Town Heritage Society is doing. Mr. Makame Juma Mtwana is going to share with us that. And then we will have a presentation from the Fountains Abbey World Heritage Site. That's a recorded video. Thank you very much. Right Honorable Vincent Ochaya, please.
All protocol observed, and I want to thank you all for coming. As said by the Country Director for British Council, this is a very trying time when you think, should I go or should go? So coming, I'm very excited that you're already here, because this is a very exciting day for us as a cultural institution across Uganda, not just a river, across Uganda. This is really a stepping stone to preserve. Hello? Okay. I'd like to thank you everybody for coming. This is what I celebrate, and I acknowledge the fact that it's a very difficult time to come in and experience such a very wonderful day where culture is playing in our lives, and culture is our DNA. For any human being, no matter where you come from, no matter what you do, what defines you, what completely talks about you, is your cultural understanding of who you are. That for me is very crucial when we're talking about something connected to preserving our most cherished things in our life that connects us with everyone else, connects us with other people, and even speaks more louder about what continuously over the generations has worked. I also want to thank the professor, Dr. Thank you very much for having said that the same things have lived for years, and you wonder, why are these things continue to live, and there are those falling out? One of the things that are good to live is culture. There's something which speaks about them, that nobody else will do it. That is to do the most important part of preserving our cultural identity as far as Our grandparents, our great-grandparents called Nipiri and Abonga Kosan. These are two brothers. We know about them in history. And particularly, what they did so significant in our history is what resulted in their separation. So, in the separation, there's important culture why their children remain their side and they look at this side. And that particular history is in one place called Wande. And the one who keeps that history is called the Povungo chiefdom. So you cannot change that. You can't change that. You can't say it, you now go and stay there. No, there's a place where it belongs. So tracing that historical point. From there backwards, we are always buried with 3 slaves. Life. That's what a good culture. To what extent? How, in terms of human, who is that was supposed to be the one to go there? It was dropped. Because it wasn't cultural, it wasn't making sense. You understand? For this one. So there are things you change. There are things like, go to the second slide. There are things like, I remember, my father told me that, second slide please. There's something that they told me about certain things that they fear most. That's where the cultural heritage and experience comes from. They said, don't go there. Because there, this will happen to you. And one of them happened to be in Povongo. That where the one there is. They say when you're fishing, that area is a no-go zone. Why? There was the axe there. That's marked the separation of Nipir and Abongo. Why am I bringing this experience? Because it is so crucial why you invest into something. There must be certain reasons why something is taken out that leads to the expression, how to speak to the emotions, how to speak about the identity of their Lord. So this is touching the identity that one way. That inside there, it is where they did the ritual of separation, and the Lord was separated with their brother. You get 2 important things. One is the eggs, 2 is the spear. Now the eggs, for good historian, is once it breaks, it can never come shape, right? You can't again bring back an egg once broken. It's done and dusted. That's also very good to find out where what it does. I'll leave for that one idea. But the axe, it's used to cut and separate. When you hit the axe down between two of you, you say, this is where we separate. It's like a form of like, you and me, we're done. So to come and tell this very important aspect of our history, it was simply rekindling that now modernity says we are coexist. So for me, it is another change in the culture of separation, bringing to reconciliation in the picture. That you can coexist even if it was there. Now, we need to develop a sense of unity. So it is bringing a new perception in our mindset in terms of this. So when their cholis and their rules are marking this, it looks at the brotherhood. The Nera or Mera brotherhood system comes in. So this comes into a part whereby our cultural and development side give us a place, a sense of identity while creating opportunities for community pride and tourism. So the pride is we are brothers actually. The tourism, can we now talk about our history together? Now this site is going to be very important for us because one of the things we developed with everybody, and I think when I was coming here this morning, I was speaking to one of my good friend, actually, and I asked him, I said, well, I wish you were next to me. I wish you were there. He said, well, yeah. I said, yeah, because we would have spoken much better about now how we coexist. Today was the day we should now speak about, from the acts, what has happened. There's something which has happened right now. We are able to coexist. Before the king crosses the Nile, you have to slaughter a bull. They had to perform a cultural ritual at Provongo. That was about 2000, I think, for the current king to now freely move the bridge. Otherwise, the king was supposed to move by only the plane across the Nile, because there was the curse of the Nile. So something was changed to make things possible. Now the king can freely pass the Nile, and so can the other side. These are all some of the things that is very fundamental about the cultural side. And we'll check on the next slide. So for me, the importance is, well, there are very many, as you can read on the screen. There are so many importance of this cultural side. So I want to go straight to the one that will kindle our thoughts today. I want to look at climate change. See, in terms of climate change, one thing is that in Uganda, Bunyoro, Doro, all these cultural institutions, they have something that needs to be protected. It's almost going to extinct. But it's just one of. And to all the partners listening, I want to say you just touched a very sensitive subject. And you do not know how that has emotionally brought people closer to one big body called CCFU, to one big body called the Ministry of Gender, where we play. To the other bodies that people like the tourism board. They asked me that day when they are going to do the rituals, and one of the requirements of the ritual was actually buffalo to be. They said, how? How going to the buffalo? These are gazetted. They said, no, you see that time you put on the bongo, it was the buffalo. So that means per year, since that day has been marked, the 18th has been marked the day for the bongo repair day, so there will be one buffalo. I said, that is very clear. So we need to apply to UA and find out. And it was such a small notice. And they said, so that means this ritual is not a real one if the buffalo is not there. Now, bringing the cow is good, but they said that one is the one the Philippines are going where? Hunting. So you see the significance of that. But you say also the new rule has come that no touching of buffaloes. That is, you get it. So how do you integrate this demand against the cultural need of harmony? So this is why the conversation goes on and on and on. Where do we hit this need? Where do we get this point of the relationship of the culture and the current world we are in? It's very interesting for us to look at that. Then we have also got the other part, which is very crucial here, is that the issue of climate change is being felt throughout Uganda and most especially to the local poor. Why they do this? In terms of economy, they still do not know the gap between the economic world and the cultural world. The economic world is all about the money. The money defines the way of living. But the cultural world is defined by the values and the norms you share, you hold together. One of them was protecting the trees. You don't cut a tree. Where are you going to cut and take it? There was no money attached to a tree to cut and go and sell. So you see where the economy and culture need to be. And the floods, I would say maybe the alone,
it's the historical, from the hills of Rizori. It follows the pattern, the Similiki River. It goes there. Even by the time the floods are reaching in a place like Pakwat, which was heavy last year, so bad, up to date the water still traces there. It was that result of that water should have gone natural until Egypt was intercepted. At some point, didn't have where to go. Did we look at that as a very key of our cultural infringement in terms of the resources we have? And then, for me, this brings into the issue of what is a threat. A threat right now, the one lay was actually washed away. We had one of the things that there are trees there. These trees were at the bank, river bank. Now the trees they were very far away. Now they are almost like not even a meter. They're in the middle of the water, right? So how did it move from there to here? Human factors, human activities, coupled with the flooding and so on. We had the bananas of one of the high priests was there. I went and saw it was washed off completely by the floods. And he had put the bananas not far away. Most of the sheep have been displaced, including the sheep for Panimur Kwanga. He had to slip away from his home. He had to flee and count how many things were destroyed as a result of one activity. Even the most treasured museum, actually the one big one we have in the Lord Kingdom, in Panimur, has been affected by the floods. And relocation had to happen. The first one and the second, now again, we're going to do the third relocation, I'm very sure. That's costly. So for these reasons, whereas we're trying to look at ways of mitigating this, I would like to say that we need to look at the deeper part of where was culture lost. At what point in our era that culture got eroded? It would be exciting to know. Even the new culture, even the one lay. Look at 10 years ago, 20 years ago. How was it looking like? I can give you one example. There was no even railway line at that time when they crossed. And now that very place is railway line. And you know one funny thing? We have to beg to be extended more land even after giving. So where that we interface with the other institution with what we want to change and preserve? That's a very big dilemma. Or the question that we need to look at. Do we really have to beg? Or we need to come and say, oh, you're doing something, let's create this. So all the opportunities that are coming in, we'd like to say that these effects have greatly affected the other nice cultural environment that we had. My father bought a grand tree that is from my father, and he told me, don't cut the tree. I didn't cut the tree. And one day, a very young gentleman just wanted something for bricks. And what did he do? My cousin just cut the tree down. Yeah, I'm going to the village. Down the tree went. And when they asked, he said, no, I want it for charcoal, it will regenerate. Now, you see where it's lost. Somebody did not understand. Maybe our part was, did we teach these people the cultural value in these trees? So the question comes at what do we have certain point where we have to teach people why certain things exist the way they are? Because the next generation will pick up from there. So to go along with this cultural thing we're doing right now, right, when we're preserving, we're running at one lay, I have a feeling that we need to preserve it because there are people who are going to learn the best practices from there. And now this is just the beginning. There are many more going to benefit from this. So in my conclusion, I had some key recommendations, which I think could add on to what everyone has said. And I'm happy that everyone has said almost the same thing I put down in writing. So I'm just simply going to look at the other parts which are not tackled. One of them is we really want to have a very special day, that is the 18th of every February, to commemorate our day. So we hope that through our partners, through many people, we're trying to look at how this can be put, the day can be gazetted for our own celebration in our history. So that is also being done. And also wanted to seek for support to document more other good things that came along with that. We have documented, but what go deep into reroute and do more of what else can be done, or what was there and what can be done, even to others that are in a threat of this extinction or even destruction. We also recommend that for anything we want to do is to look at the other subscription sites. For example, we are really worried about the chief, who already for some time have been displaced, and there are certain things being destroyed. I want to see what else can be protected in the shift though. So we are also trying to look at it as an institution, plus many more others who are at threat of the Nile Bank, so that we document more things that we can protect. Some of them by ourselves, but some of them through support, because even there are things we can do on our own, but there are those we might want to be supported in some way or the other. That will come up. Then we also recommend support from the Uganda Wildlife Authority that when this comes, and especially when the chiefs will sit together in the council and bring it up and make a pronouncement, we might put a request for how do we get that buffalo once a year. do we have to forget and cut in our cultural practices, or we bring it back? That would be very interesting to think about and see how it works. Then also mindset change is very key. We want to change, we want to continue building on the mindset change, because some of the human activities are led by our own people who have just lost the direction. So we want to do much more into community mobilization, and we'll see how we can do an outreach programs, some dramatized way of practicing how things were. We hope this will help us. And of course, need to balance both the monetary and the cultural practice or cultural factors. With this said, I want to thank you very much, because my time is up. But also, I want to leave you with one thing. First of all, asante to everyone who came here. I got excited by the type of dimension when the people are introducing themselves. I actually realized that we have people from very, very parts of work. So on behalf of His Royal Majesty of Bimo, the chiefs and the local community, I wish to extend our gratitude to the British Council. Thank you very much. You made gave us a very big smile. So we're very happy, and we shall protect this smile. Also, the International National Trust Organization, Cross Cultural Foundation, our great family. Thank you very much. And of course, the AD, congratulations. And to Emily, we'll not miss you. We shall just have love to live with you forever. Thank you. And of course, we welcome the new ED, perfect person. We want to see a great milestone with you. Thank you so much. And I want to thank also the Uganda Museum and also the Uganda Wildlife Authority and our mother ministry, Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. I want to thank you. All the partners here, everyone who contribute to make this smile in the face of the people in the Rwenzori and Lord Kingdom, I want to thank you very much. Asante sana. Let his history be a turning point for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Prime Minister. I now welcome Mr. Makame from Zanzibar to share with us.
Good afternoon again. As I've been introduced, my name is Makame Juma. I'm from Zanzibar Stone Heritage Society, and I've been invited to come here in Uganda so that we can share our experiences as Zanzibar Stone Heritage Societies on how we fought for this impact of climate change on cultural heritage sites, and maybe what were the mitigation measures that we have undertaken so that we can safeguard our heritage. So all the protocol observed. But before carrying on the topic concerned, so let me introduce a bit our society and what we are doing so that we can come back on our subject. Next slide, please. So this is the area that we are talking about. I mean, those areas, the marked red is Zanzibar Stone Town. It's nominated as a World Heritage Property in 2002. Next slide. And those are the images, shows different streets within the Stone Town. So just the image of the Stone Town. Next slide, please. Yeah, it's about Heritage Society. What is all about our organization? It's a non-government organization established 2002, and it is registered under Social Society Act of number 6 of 1995. Our mission is just to promote conservation of Stone Town's heritage, environmental, as well as cultural welfare of its habitats. Our vision as Zanzibar Stone Town Heritage Society, we want to see Stone Town as a living heritage. I mean, as a well-conserved Stone Town with a living heritage. And the building here is where is our office located. The building is called itself as an old custom house. Our main focus has been on public awareness and advocacy for different cultural aspects, as well as training and capacity building, as well as restoration. As you have witnessed that we have lots of old historical buildings. So sometimes we do restorations, We have environmental protection programs as well as networking and partnership with different NGO, like what we did for International National Trust Organization and other organizations. Coming back to our subject, our topic concerning impact of climate change on cultural heritage sites in Zanzibar. We all know. So this presentation will actually cover the impact of climate change on cultural heritage sites in Zanzibar, Tanzania, and what are the natural mitigation measures that have been undertaken to safeguard those sites. So I think now we are familiar with this word of climate change. So the climate change is already been noticed around the world. The same case is also applied to Zanzibar. We're all aware about all of this climate change. Next slide, please. So as we all know that Zanzibar is an island, and the island or coastal areas and marine area are the most affected areas or impacted sector in this climate change and effect in Zanzibar. Climate change influenced by a number of factors, among them rising of temperature, increasing of rainfall variability, high wind speeds, and other extreme events that we all know. Okay, in case, so now I would like to take you direct to see, to show you how exactly those impact of climate change is witnessed in Zanzibar. So we have a number of studies shows that Stone Town is now experiencing an impact of climate change on its coastal area especially. So this also includes action of erosion or beach erosion. So these erosions cause or brings harmful impact to the heritage sites and other physical structures due to the rise of the sea level, lead changing of the shorelines, as well as coastal structures. For example, we have areas those found at the seafront views of Stone Town. We call it Shangani, Malindi, Mizingani, etc. In the next slide, maybe you will see an example of how the serious impact of climate change is witnessed within the Stone Town. You may see this photo here. This was a water well. It was constructed very far away from the seawater. But nowadays, you may find during the high tides, the water well is found within the seawater. So this is how serious the impact of climate change is. This is due to the ocean erosion as well as the rising of the sea level. Yeah, flooding is another impact that is witnessed in Stone Town. So flooding is another issue that faces Stone Town's heritage site. And the main cause of this flood is the presence of high unpredictable rainfall that resulted into destruction of old or historic buildings. A good example, during 2020, almost 5 historic buildings were collapsed due to this high unpredictable rainfall. So this is an example is on a number of buildings were collapsed in Stone Town because the buildings themselves are very old. There are so many. So due to this unpredictable heavy rainfalls and resulted a destruction number of this historic building. In addition to that, climate change impacts also witnessed on water resources. Water resources. So there is gradual change in natural taste of fresh water into salinity water. So this directly leads inadequate supply of fresh water in some areas of Stone Town heritage site. So among the impact of climate change. Moreover, salt from the seawater has negative influence on the buildings, especially historic buildings. The wall coatings and mortar are often peel away from the walls and consequently damaging the coral stone from the historic building. We'll see an example on the next slide on how the historic building and how the salt water caught this peel away of coating and mortars from these historic buildings. And on the side of mitigation measures, so we've seen those. So one among them is community involvement and engagement, because they are one who was living in that particular area for a very long time, so they have something to share. So during these consultations, involvement and engagement of local community, We have involved them in the process of investigations and narrating the impact of climate change and the development of adaptation strategies. So as a heritage society, because in 2020, we had a project on reviving the old master plan and having introduced the new master plan. So we had a number of these community engagement programs so that we consult with them about that particular issues of environment. Yeah, adaptation. So those are, I don't think it's like, okay. Mitigation measures that have been undertaken to safeguard the stone town. The impact of climate can be reduced by using one of the two. Either we can use adaptation method or maybe we can use mitigation method. In terms of adaptations, means this is the way on how we can live with climate change impact, but changing the way of living. And this is the most common way in developing countries. But in the case of mitigations, in the process of executing plans that keep away from the climate change impact. So these refer as the most expensive way to safeguard from the climate change impact, and it's commonly practiced in developing countries. In the developed country. The following are some of the mitigation measures that have been undertaken by Zanzibar to safeguard its cultural heritage sites from impact of climate change. The first and foremost important, construction of the seawall. As you have seen in the different image of Stone Town, the Stone Town, there are so many historic buildings from the seafront. So we have made this seawall so as to protect the seafront building, historic building, for the Stone Town in some part like Mizingani area, and this help to reduce the strength of the sea waves that contribute to the erosion. And you may see the pictures in the next slide. Yes, this is the type of seawall constructed at the Stone Town so that we can, we can protect the sea, the action of erosions in Stone Town so that we can safeguard our historic building on the seafront, on the seafront. Next slide. Yeah, tree planting. This is another mitigation measure that we are normally used in Zanzibar so that we can fight against those impact of climate change. So in this regard, trees are mostly needed. We call them as a carbon sink. So they are needed for reducing the rate of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So in Zanzibar, we have a number of programs of replanting trees program, like mangrove and other type of trees. Establishment of an active community organization. Also in Zanzibar, establishment of environmental, it's like CBO, community-based organization, and NGO have been emphasized. They are responsible to create, to manage, and supervise climate change adaptation program or project. Currently in Zanzibar, we have the very strong organization called Zanzibar Climate Change Alliance, and it is doing very great job on conservation and the protection program. Yeah, land reclamation. This is another method that we have been used in Zanzibar so that we can safeguard our heritage resources. And the above photo, it was taken on, this is show the reality of the area, how it was on 2010. But the current, so now it was, the area was reclaimed. There was certain local investors who was an interest to invest next to these ruins. The ruins was, it's called as Baitul Mtoni Palace, and it was built by Sultan Said around 1828. So local investors have an interest to invest a hotel next to the ruins. So he had been requested to reclaim this area so that the ruins can be saved. So this is on how we are fighting on those climate change impacts so that we can safeguard our heritage resources found in Zanzibar. In conclusions, to conclude my presentation, I have to say that the climate change and the environment is not the government monopoly, and every citizen should see him or herself as a part of solution to the climate change and the environmental challenge. That is why we should translate such awareness into action by improving people's perceptions, skills, and the technical strategies to fight against climate change impact to safeguard our cultural heritage sites. So this is the conclusion. Maybe next slide. Yes, thank you for your attention. I would like to thank CCFU for considering Zanzibar Staunton Heritage Society as a co-partner and welcome to this very great event so that we can share our experience. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mr. Makame, for sharing with us your experience in Zanzibar. As I explained before, CCFU in our work, we are very committed to learning from like-minded partners. And I also talked about the International National Trusts Organization, which is a membership organization. And what we try to do, we try to learn from everyone that has an experience to share, and also try to share an experience from Uganda. Thank you very much. Now we are turning to the Fountains Abbey Studley and Study Royal project, which is in the UK. It's a recorded presentation, so please, let's watch it.
Hi, I'm Justin Scully. I'm the General Manager for Fountains Abbey and Studley Royal. What we've learned from the project and working with the Ugandan team is really around community engagement and getting buy-in for the project. The challenges in both countries can be similar, actually. How do you get people interested in protecting heritage? How do you bring other stakeholders on board, particularly thinking about government and other formal agencies that help support these kinds of projects? One of the impacts that we've had working with the Ugandan team is making us think about the significance of places that we're working in the project. We're here at Fountains Abbey and Studley Royal, a World Heritage Site. What the project has made us think about is about other places that are important to our community. One little example of that is in our local town, there's an area called the Fairy Steps that are falling into disrepair. They aren't formally recognised, but they're a great link back to the massive military camp that was in Ripon during the First World War. So it's about community relevance, not just formal significance, and that's been a great piece of learning for our team. In the bigger picture, both projects are really important. I think linking across the two countries, halfway across the world, it shows the threats to heritage from climate change. And that threat is for all of us, no matter which country we're from. So it's been brilliant to be able to work on that issue and learn from each other about how we address those threats to heritage from climate change that is increasing as time progresses. My personal connection to Uganda is that I was fortunate enough to have a sabbatical for 3 months with CCFU. The Trust were kind enough to support me in doing that, and it was a really great experience to see the challenges on the ground in Uganda, to work with the team in Kampala, to be able to move around in Uganda in this beautiful country, but also see the similarities and differences across the two countries that actually enhances the way we do things.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Justin. If you're watching us from the UK, now is the time for us to share some experiences, share some ideas, share some reflections. My colleague Kisa will be moving the mic around. I see we have a hand from Beatrice. So please.
Thank you. I break the glass. Even though I've learned in Uganda, you're not very shy people. You're always ready to talk. So I'm very courageous. Thank you very much again for CCFU for another unique event, because very often we don't hear talking about this important dimension, which is the cultural dimension. I would like to start, I will try to be very brief, and I would like to start from the presentation from Zanzibar. And I really appreciate I would say the dichotomy between climate change adaptation and climate change mitigation, and I would say the responsibility between the two parts of the world, allow me to say so. However, the dichotomy is not clear cut, is not that clear cut. So I think it was kind of a warning sign that it's not that the developed world are the only responsible for climate change, because the things are going on also in Africa. So I think the warning here is, guys, let's have a look again at the economy. So I think the Prime Minister from Allur was mentioning economy as a very tricky dimension. But I would say not economy, I would say monetarization of economy. So the monetarization of economy comes with the desacralization of nature. So I think we should learn a lot from Africa. We should learn a lot from an overall, how can I say, approach to life with nature, because culture is not simply doing a ritual here and then. It is much more, it is a vision of the world. So I think that we should question not if once a year a buffalo can be slaughtered for a ritual, but we should question the way to make money, the way animals are, livestock are bred to make money. So this is the real danger. Making money, so over exploit nature and provoking climate crisis. I like this word, it's climate crisis, it's not climate change. So to end, I think the audience here has a big responsibility, because the audience here is educated, very much educated in the Western way of the meaning of the world, of these words. So I think you could be the transition between mitigation and adaptation, or vice versa. So I would like to share with this audience, I would like to encourage this audience to read a philosophical book, because here is a matter really of philosophy. It's a matter of how we live together on this planet. And I really encourage you all to read a fantastic philosophical book from Daniel Quinn. The book is titled Ishmael. I don't remember the year, but it's old. I think it's from the 90s. The author is even dead now. And I think he didn't even put the copyrights on his book, so you can easily download it from internet. And it is really an eye-opening journey between the two, I would say the dichotomy between taking from the planet and leaving things behind us on the planet. So I think the Daniel Quinn talks about takers and leavers. The society can be divided into takers and leavers. I think you guess immediately who are the takers and who are the leavers. So I think the whole world must learn to become, or restart to be leavers on this planet. So we really need to lower our ambition and be humble on this planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. I might say that Beatrice is from the European Union. They are our treasured partners on using culture, and I would like already to invite you to a museum that we are trying to put together in Jinja, the Railway Museum, and we are working with the European Union on that, and we've worked together on several other projects. Lisa. Oh, Frederick, share something, and then our chair will share something.
Good afternoon. My name once again is Frederick Nsibambi. I work at the Cross Culture Foundation of Uganda. I will have one small question, and it goes to Mr. Makame. As you are presenting, you talked about, you mentioned some of the mitigating measures against climate change, and one of the things that came out strongly in your presentation was the construction of a seawall to protect some of the historic buildings in Zanzibar. My question or worry is that sometimes we might think that we actually creating a solution when we're actually creating more problems. In your opinion, do you think the construction of the seawall was more used, or I don't know, maybe let me change the question. What impact, because we wanted to safeguard the buildings against the rising waters, but sometimes probably when you create a wall, you can change the presentation and the outlook and the accessibility of historic buildings in town. So in your opinion, do you think this was the right strategy, the right mitigation measure when you look at the importance of historic building and the need to provide access?
Okay, thank you very much, Frederick. You will, in the course of the plenary, give Mr. Makame some time to respond to that. But in the meantime, let's share some other ideas.
Thank you, MC, and all the presenters. I think they're quite good. Now, I haven't read the books. Probably it would have been good to have some share of what is contained. Probably it would also give us whether there's a relationship between the presentations and what is coming out to be seen in the book. But then also, the impression I get is as if there's no hope, to change things. But I seem to see hope by way of looking at where UWA is looking after has hope. Where UWA is not present, there seems to be no hope. So probably UWA could also have shared with us how to extrapolate that hope from the UWA side to the what? To the non-UWA side. So I believe we should look at the hope. We should consider where do we go after the analysis. The analysis looks horrible as to where, but is that where we stop? So where do we go? And I believe that could be probably a much more encouraging way forward as to where. Now, I don't know who of them can give us that hope. Whether the hope is in the booklet or the hope needs to be rebuilt or something needs to be put forward so that we now look at the future. The building of the walls, they didn't tell us, since we did build these walls, and I think it was even done in Uganda, there is something different. I know climate change issues take long, all right, but probably it's important to know why we do some of the things now so that in the long run, it gives us that hope. That's my concern.
Okay, thank you very much, CCFU Board Chair, for those reflections. Please, if you have anything that could bring some more hope on the side where UWA is not intervening at the moment yet, please, it will be good to share that. But I also would like to highlight that what CCF is also trying to do now is to see where our communities can play, individuals in the community can play even a small role to bring that hope that we are all yearning for. Is that where we? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Who is going to respond to him a bit?
Yeah, thank you very much, participants and the various presenters. It has been really interesting to hear from these presenters. In fact, I must say I'm one of those people that do not consider culture in most cases because perhaps I'm not, I do not have enough light about it, but according to these presentations and what is on the ground, culture should not be neglected when we are planning for development. And in this case, when we are talking about climate crisis. In Uganda, as I speak now, and CCF, I think you have a big role to play. I think in Uganda, we have a significant culture eroding. The other time I was reading some article in Monitor, and somebody was talking about how many languages are soon disappearing in Uganda. When we talk about climate change or climate crisis vis-a-vis culture erosion in Uganda, we miss normally out something. There are so many NGOs and some other actors working hard towards rejuvenating some of these things. However, what I think actually we need to focus on is to see how best culture and norms, as you are calling it, can be well integrated from the grassroots in our education curriculum, so that these younger people can know really what culture is all about. You see, one time actually, when you go around schools here, you will see that people do not know their local languages. People are just interested in speaking English. At one point, I was embarrassed somewhere when I went with a fellow Ugandan, and we could not talk actually in the local language. We are speaking English. Then somebody from somewhere was asking whether we come from UK. It was very interesting. And when I look back and with him, then we started forging some Swahili here and there to show them that we are from Uganda. But it wasn't working. So I think as CCF and other actors, we need to refocus this and help our curriculum to put ahead and emphasize the culture integration into the education system of this country, so that we can comprehensively help to rejuvenate what we are losing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is very honorable to be honest and to confess that I was not using culture and focusing on it. That is a voice from NEMA, and we are. Do I get it right that you're from NEMA? Yeah. Thank you very much. Yes. I said I. Yes. And now here is what I'm saying. When you have had the good news, take it for yourself and spread it in your department and your institution. Thank you very much. We are very glad that you are with us here and that we have been able to at least share that information. We are going to hear from who are responding, hopefully, to Mr. Nyalu's question.
Thank you very much. My name is Gladys Mirembe. I'm from Uganda Wildlife Authority. And thank you, CCFU, for this very beautiful event. As an institution, first clap for us for putting up the hope that you mentioned. When I saw the clip, I saw some hope and I was like, wow, okay, we are keeping the hope alive. But we are not doing this hope alone. As an institution, we are, of course, managing with the neighboring communities. If we had the resistance, you wouldn't see the hope that you saw there. So we are enforcing, of course. It is through enforcement that the hope keeps green and fresh. It doesn't come easy. But we do our best to bring the communities on our side. And it is the reason that you see the hope. Like, I want to wear your word. Of course, government is putting steps, deliberate steps to mitigate and adapt to the climate change. But of course, there are other gaps that we need to fill as Ugandans. And what we do as Uganda Wildlife Authority, we attach the economic benefit. We share revenue from the protected areas with the neighboring communities. we share revenue. Where we find a challenge is that we don't dictate on what they should use with the revenue. But currently we are trying to bring them on board, to sweet talk them and say, look, you can use the revenue to a different aspects, to change the environment to look like ours, to change the area to look like our protected areas. But of course, through local government, people want to get that money, put it in their pocket, and it solves that issue that they have at that moment, but not for longer term perspective. And when you look at the rate of forest, the rate at which we are losing the forest cover, it stands, I think, at 2.6 annually. And we still have the bad practices that I don't want to call it the cultural practices, but the bad practices of should I call it a bad practice? Or we don't have the alternative as communities of firewood collection, and it's a practice. It's a practice, but they have no alternative. And they go out there, clear all the vegetation, and they have no alternative. And maybe we need to teach them on how effective or how sustainable they can use the environment, of which we are trying to do through resource access. When you look at that green hope that you saw, you may think that the communities don't come to access some of the resources there. They do come, pick firewood, but of course, controllably and sustainably. They don't deplete the areas. They access medicinal medicinal plants. They come to wash, to appease the spirits for other culture, the good culture practices. They come to the protected areas and, of course, carry out those good practices. Someone, the Right Honorable Prime Minister, about the buffalo. I may surprise you that it is possible. It is possible, not directly, but in one way or another. We have sport hunting around those areas. And it is very possible that you can work with professional hunters who come to do sport hunting, and you get the buffalo, but in the rightful ways, not coming to poach, not through poaching. But when we attach the economic value, we don't throw away the cultural practices. You go through the right channels to get what you want. Even the buffalo, yes, it can be good, but through sport hunting practice, which is actually happening around your area. So we can see how to work it out, and you slaughter the buffalo for the culture in the rightful way, and that way it can sustain our intentions here.
Okay, thank you.
But not poaching, I must repeat.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we are going to have two more hands and then we go forward. As he prepares, as Mr. John Okumu prepares, I don't know if this is something to remind ourselves on, or whether it's something that slipped. Was it a buffalo or an elephant? It was a buffalo. Ah, okay. I think in capturing the information, it was an elephant, if I remember well. But if it was a buffalo, then okay, Mr. John Okumu, please.
Okay, thank you. Once again, my name Okumu John Jolly, and in my experience of working with the young people, especially members of the heritage clubs, and in my other subsequent experience of also working with the CCFU and the Ministry of Gender in documenting and preserving our cultural heritages, especially those of the Alur people. I think what is most important when we are looking at the viability of our heritage elements is the engagement of the young people, which I think CCFU is doing very, very well through the heritage clubs. And I must here begin by, first of all, appreciating this very effort of CCFU in putting our cherished cultural values into the hands of our young people. When we look at this crisis of the climate, and we see the level at which maybe we are using the heritage resources, adults and people, all people around, I think we are in most cases using our resources in a way that does not care for tomorrow. And if we should do this, to me, I'm still going down and siding still with CCFU by engaging young people so that we transmit this. For example, when we apply our multimedia approaches of using the folklore and so on, and correcting people who have bad behaviors through our folklore, I think we should still engage more, and we record the heritage around our resources that are being carelessly used. So we relay all this to our younger people in the training centers where they are, at schools and those out of school. And in that way, if we bring our young people on board, to me, it is even going to raise their hope better. Because when we tell them the needs, why we need to preserve those heritage resources in order to also check on our climate change. Because I remember among the Alur, there are words that were used, there are practices, taboos and other practices that protected the environment. Like the right Prime Minister was saying, you don't go to certain areas at certain times, you don't cut trees, and those trees were protected. They would say, when you cut this one, this and so on will happen. So in those ways, the trees were protected. In those ways, the wetlands were protected. So I still hope that it's better we get and engage our young people and educate them more on the needs that will help and save us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll have a final hand, which is from the Uganda National Museum.
Thank you so much. I think I have like 3 points to make. As you all know that climatic change is something that is really troublesome. At times we are suffering from the effects from the activities that are taking place from way far beyond places. I would think that we also need to have master plans for all these sites that clearly indicate the assets that are on the different sites. And also, there is a workshop I participated in Brazil. They were sharing how they're trying to adopt and also mitigate and rebuild and also do all things. And what these guys did, they kind of embraced the digital transformation. What they do, they take GPS coordinates of every different asset they have on the site. Because as you know, culture, there are some rituals that are supposed to happen on a given site, on a given spot. So in case of a flood, what they do, because they already have a GPS coordinate of where the different assets were, they tend to rebuild a few things that help people to still commute and perform their rituals in that exact spot. So I think when we also embrace the digital transformation, it can also help us to keep moving with the culture, as well as adapt and learn and also live with the different effects of the climatic change. And also what I can say is, given the effects of climatic change, all of us are key players in this. The community, they have the information about the different heritage places and their cultures. Government can help to organize the different communities. And then the civil society, at times they are faster, they drive things, and also sometimes they have the funds. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Joseph, from the Uganda National Museum. We are coming to a time when we are going to come to a close. We are going to hear from the Commissioner Museums and Monuments, or at least a representative. But before that, two things. One, I would like to welcome the Commissioner for Culture and Family Affairs, Madam Juliana, for joining us. And as part of the plenary, there was one question which was given to our colleague from Zanzibar as the Commissioner prepares to come and address us. We are going to hear from Mr. Makame to trying to answer that question in just 1 minute, please.
Once again, I would like to thank all of the audience, those who contribute and ask some question. And the question, I think, is very, very, very simple. Just in my opinion, what do I think about that construction of the seawall? If it is a right mitigation measure or not, isn't it? So, in answering this question, I have to say that actually there was a seawall before. It was constructed around 1920. So due to this ocean erosions and rising of the sea level, then it was almost destroyed. So that's why. So we reconstruct the new wall. So it was all about that. And during the high tides, so the seawater was moving from the sea to the land. So they proposed this as a mitigation measure. For the time being, I can agree with this. Yes, it is a right mitigation measure for the time being. So I don't know what will happen the next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, I was made to understand that the person speaking next is here in the foot of the Commissioner for Museums and Monuments, and also in the steps of the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities. I request our Executive Director, Madame Barbara Bagotera, to kindly invite her first.
Thank you very much, Amoni. And I would like to say thank you to all of you for the wonderful discussions and deliberations, sharing of experiences that have taken place today. We would like to thank our partners, UA and NEMA, who work with you closely. And we pray that in the interventions to come, please mainstream culture within the programs. And I know it will take us far, it will bring good benefits. I would like to recognize the presence of Ms. Catherine Ajambo, who is here to speak to us on behalf of the Permanent Secretary as well as the Commissioner, Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Activities. And she will have the pleasure at the end of her speech to launch for us our two publications that we have. We will have that at the end of her speech. So with due honor, allow me to invite you to speak to us. You're welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here this evening especially in another status, which is refuge, but I'm happy. This morning, I got a temporary promotion to be a PS for the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities. And I was excited and I was like, oh, I wish the event goes on until tomorrow. I will be PS until tomorrow. But long story short, I'm here in the footsteps of, I would say like 2 levels. PS delegated commissioner, museums and monuments. But she was also engaged and she gave me an honor to represent her. So I'm going to read her speech verbatim. When you see me reading off the paper, then that will be my own opinions, not hers. Thank you. I take this honor to thank CCFU and its partners for organizing this event today evening, an event that is focusing on sharing on natural flood management and the launch of 2 books highlighting the impact of climate change on cultural heritage sites. Climate change patterns play a fundamental role in shaping natural ecosystems and the human economies and cultures that depend on them. Climate is rapidly changing with disruptive impacts. Because so many systems are tied to climate change, climate can affect many related aspects of where and how people, plants, and animals live. Some short-term climate variation is normal, but long-term trends indicate a changing climate. The effects of climate change are being felt throughout Uganda on agricultural production, forestry, the water levels in rivers and lakes, and the receding glaciers on the Rwenzori Mountains. There has been floods in Teso, there have been landslides in Bududa, there have been floods in the Rwenzori region, specifically Kasese, then in the Aluru Kingdom, around Pakwachi. So when floods occur, we only think of human beings and their properties. People's culture and their heritage sites are usually forgotten. Yet this also leads to social defragmentation, a role that cultural heritage plays to maintain. I applaud CCFU once again in partnership with the International National Trusts Organization into for the private initiative they have taken to preserve the important elements of the cultural heritage of the Bakonzo in the Rwenzori region and the Aluru in the West Nile. The receding glaciers on Rwenzori Mountains has not only affected and threatened the intangible cultural heritage of the people neighboring the mountains, but also the general tourism of the country. We used to have visitors who came specifically to look at the glaciers on the Rwenzori, but this is not possible anymore due to climate change. It is also very unfortunate that the wildlife spot historical site which is already listed on our database as a monument, is also under the threat of being washed away by floods. So on this basis, I would like to refer to the Paris Agreement, which emphasizes the need to stress urgency about climate change and cultural heritage, to see the role they play in this exercise. Cultural heritage is embedded in nearly all aspects of our society. It is a part of people's lives and identities at local, national, international, and so is uniquely strated strated to communicate the myriad impacts of climate change. In some cases, they can also be used to showcase effective adaptation and mitigation responses. Many of these sites and landscapes that we see being washed away or affected by floods have been subject of numerous recent media reports. I think in Uganda we should be specific. CCFU has always highlighted on some of these issues. I'm happy to interface with Fred, we've shared. Thank you for being here. So they've made us know what is happening. We are happy, we appreciate. By the way, this is off the paper. So we appreciate the role. Back to the paper. These are very effective tools to focus attention on the issue. However, the value of local heritage must not be overlooked. All over the world, climate change is impacting local cultural heritage and places of cultural significance. And these impacts are being adequately felt. Climate-induced mitigation is leading to the displacement of entire communities who are divorced from their tangible heritage and landscapes and at the risk to losing their sense of place. These impacts are both current and real and require an urgent response. Cultural heritage can be utilized to stress the urgency about the immediate and future impacts of climate change, to emphasize the importance of action at local, national, and international level. Stronger partnerships are needed, not only when communities to facilitate participation, but also with the government and the development sector to achieve climate and compatible development. There is an immense and untapped potential for mobilization of society through active engagement of local communities and visitors of cultural heritage sites. If these intersections are actively promoted, made visible, and designed to be part of an ambitious education system, then we shall achieve our target to manage climate change amidst our resources. Designing education perspectives, building on both cultural heritage and forward-looking, based on climate and climate change sciences, grounded in cultural identity, could be instrumental in shaping action within community identity through a sense of belonging. To address climate changes, we all need to think and act differently in order to support systematic and societal transformation. Cooperation building and multiple forms of knowledge will be essential. There's need to create bridges and cooperation between experts and decision makers involved in the sectors of heritage, culture, sustainability, climate science, climate action, and to inspire and stimulate new approaches. Where is Uganda government in all this as we strive to achieve the agenda? The Uganda government pledges further support. In terms of research, this has been requested by CCFU. We still stress, this is not an implementation we make because we are requested to do. It is our mandate, and we plan to work on it and achieve this objective. We shall do research, document, map, but of course we love to work in partnership. So CCFU will pledge our cooperation in this regard to document the heritage sites that are under threat. Number 2 on your request was to edify on the Museum and Monuments Bill of 2017. I need to bring it to your notice that the principles of museums and monuments we already approved by Cabinet, and we are in the last stages for submission to put this into law. Then number 3 was support efforts to integrate community tourism in the national strategy. This is already being done, though we appreciate the reminder. And we also pledge to work with you in this regard with the other stakeholders that will come on board. We have a project in the ministry that is the handcraft and souvenir project. This is looking at promoting community tourism and also promote the livelihoods of several other communities. These and several other projects are in place in the ministry, and we also pledge to work with you where you've identified the others that require support. We shall work together as a team. Once again, I take this honor to thank CCFU with its partners for organizing this event for the evening, where we elaborate suggestions, issues, and actions that are geared towards protection of our heritage amidst climate change. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Madam Commissioner and Permanent Secretary in representation. We are now coming to the launch of the 2 booklets, and as Barbara requested, you're going to kindly do us an honor of launching them. Now, it has been CCFU's long-term dream to always have, to eventually have a Ministry of Culture. Currently, cultural issues are housed in 2 ministries, you might know. In the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, we have the Department of Museums and Monuments. And in the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, we have the Department of Culture and Family Affairs. It is good that we have both commissioners here. So, we request that both commissioners help us in launching these publications. And please, as you launch, or after the launch, please about these 2 departments. Not that we have one place to all. I think it would be nice for the culture if we come to that. Accompanying those 2 commissioners, I request a representation from and a representation from Alur to be part of the launch. We are honored to have the Minister for Culture, Tourism and Native Administration from the Usingabo Rwenzururu. We are also honored to have the Prime Minister of Alur Kingdom with us here. A very valuable partner as well is the Uganda Wildlife Authority in doing this. So we request you to be part of the launch process. I think the books have been distributed already, and I had already brought copies for the 5 people that I've invited to help us in launching. So please, I hope there is a word that can come from you as we launch. So please, Barbara, you know that our former director, Emily Drani, this is really at her heart. And please, we request you to be part of this. And then also our former board chair, Professor Lutu, we request you to be part of this memorable event. then the current board chair for CCFU. I'll have a copy for you to
guide us on what to do as we are doing the
it might be an idea for a mic to move around. If one has one word to say at the launch of this, then it might be very good. I will start with Professor Rutu if you have a word to say at this launch. Very impromptu.
It's really timely. This study has come out. There's been a lot of emphasis about what I would call the macro structures. But when you talk about things cultural, you should always keep in focus the family, because that's the unit where culture is really cultivated, and all the attitudes, all the values, all these things we're talking about. We all should always remind ourselves what is happening to the family. What is happening to the family? It's also in a crisis.
Okay. Thank you very much. I can't leave without saying thank you very much to Intu, because they've given us so many opportunities to learn and to be as others, and now actually to have a project that we can do together. Behind this work actually is all the communities, but also John DeConnick, who has spent a lot of time, many sleepless hours, working on these publications. So I want to say thank you so much to John, as well as many of you who've already been thanked. I think in the discussions that we have had, synergy has been an important thing, looking at science, economy, and we are glad that with support from UNESCO, we have a course on cultural heritage, and I'm glad Jimmy Sentongo is here. He's one of our partners from Uganda Matters, and I'm sure taking notes on how we're going to try and create a core group of educated professionals in heritage studies who will be able to pick up on some of the things that we have said. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm so glad that you've honored our invitation, and of course, under the leadership of Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As Uganda Wildlife Authority, we shall commit to continue the good partnership that we have with CCFU. And I haven't read the book, but we shall also commit into implementing the recommendations that might be in this book, especially on the mitigating the impact of warming, the climate crisis on Uganda's cultural heritage in Rwenzori and Arua sub-regions and other regions that are neighboring our protected areas. Thank you.
Since she's the launcher, she does last.
Yes.
I just want to say that it is possible to make this happen, because CCFU has made it possible to turn culture from those sites to intellectuality up to university level. So I think it is possible. So hooray, CCFU. Hooray, our partners. We shall never disappoint you as CCFU.
I already said a lot, but just want to say one word borrowed from the Chinese proverb. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. This is just the beginning. I'll continue.
I also said a lot, particularly I'm happy the buffalo is a possibility. And also, I'm very happy that continued protection of water sites is a possibility. And for me, at the cultural background, the cultural world, for any cultural institution in Uganda, this is something we treasure, and this is something that we shall forever be grateful for. Thank you for all the partners, and particularly, I want to say thank you that this has been a very wonderfully graced day, and we have something to smile about this book that will forever keep in our minds, in our hearts.
Thank you very much. My name is Naumo Juliana Korio, Commissioner for Culture and Family Affairs, but also holding the portfolio of the Director Gender and Community Development in the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. I'd like to thank all of you for your contribution towards this publication. I'd also like to thank especially CCFU. CCFU has published many books among all the NGOs in the culture sector to raise further awareness, to increase the knowledge and skills of people, both young and old, men and women, boys and girls, on the value, on the importance, on the contribution of culture to development. We've done a lot in terms of raising awareness on the contribution of culture to social cohesion, but we are still struggling with the contribution of culture to the economics of the country. And I'm happy today we are showing the contribution of culture to the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is a great step in the right direction. We still have to do a lot more, and I'm happy that each of you, either individually or as institutions or as government agencies, have contributed to the visibility of culture from where it has been. There's a lot of visibility now in the area of culture among people who did not know how culture contributes to development. So I urge each of you to continue to do more. Like Barbara said, this is just the beginning. Let's move towards the middle of the beginning and maybe towards the end when everybody now talks proudly of their culture. In the area of the Ministry of Culture, I think we need to do our groundwork first as agencies, as CSOs. Then it will be cabinet to decide. So the ball falls back on all of us to do our part in terms of exactly what we want. Apart from mentioning the name of the ministry, there's a lot to be done before you come to the name. So the ball falls on all of us, and cabinet will then decide when we submit it to cabinet. Thank you.
I'm once again Baruch Erkana, Minister for Culture from Obusinga OBR. We are so grateful, we are so privileged to be partners with Cross Cultural Foundation Uganda in their struggle to mitigate the effects of climate change. We are so happy and committed that we shall work together in mitigating the effects of climate change. And in this case, not only climate change, but climate crisis. Rwenzori is a zone that's actually a mother to snows. If well protected, the whole environment where Uganda lives, where the center of Africa lives, it will cause a lot of changes. Geographically, when we trace the origin of the waters of the Nile, they are traced on Mount Rwenzori, which means the snows acts as a source to many water bodies. So when well protected, we are preserving the environment. Through culture, it is the mother to all innovation. And with our culture, when it is well preserved, climate change will be realized. Thank you.
So now, ladies and gentlemen, the final launch by the Commissioner, Museums and Monuments.
Thank you. Before I do the launch, I think I would want to ask Mirembe, you made a pledge, the buffalo is possible. But I also wanted to guarantee that sport hunting yearly of a buffalo, you need to guarantee sustainability of that. He said that every year they need one. Listen, I pray that is really possible.
We have a portal to guide the process.
Thank you. Once again, I would want to thank CCFU and the partners in making this book a reality. This is another addition to our knowledge on cultural heritage made in Uganda, not brought on board from some European writers. We appreciate the effort and the commitment, and we pledge to be in support of the work of CCFU and other stakeholders in cultural heritage. And we hope, or I hope, that people will be able to read this knowledge and apply it to the Ugandan context. I take this honor to launch the book.
Thank you very, very, very much. I think we can take our seats and we'll be guided on the next steps. Thank you. I want also to say that we have had with us an online audience and engagement, even after the launch. I don't know if Adima is nearby. It would be nice to hear what the online audience were able to share with us in chats and in comments. But also Simon, will Simon? Okay, we are going to have a small bite, I think, immediately after here. Karibuni. Simon, you will kindly guide us on the next steps in terms of having our bite at the end.
So I think we are being blessed at the end of the day. Arul and Acholi know this very well. When we did the ritual last time, one of the signs was that when it rained, it was a good sign that the gods were happy. I think the gods are happy for our project today. Thank you all for coming. Sorry I've been busy with the media there, but we are so grateful. I didn't thank the team that we worked with all the way from Arul, Renzori. Thank you so much. And our partners that have been able to come, UA, UTB, we are so happy. So we have refreshments to try and interact more. And then there will be some logistical work done for especially people who are coming from our country at that table. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, Simon, and ladies and gentlemen. I remain Harmony Stoke, Cross Cultural Foundation of Uganda. I sign off.
So thanks.
Sorry for inconvenience, but just regarding Salako popular speech, just bit fun. That's I don't.
I'll send an mail.
So kuandike nange mpandike nja kuweereza speech.
Thanks for the presentation. I'm okay, how are you? The media people are coming to tell you need a comment, you guys do a comment. That's what. Sorry, let them take screenshots.
Oh, now where is the incha? What day? Tomorrow morning. But remind them, oh, better down then you can take it out of online.
Come on, have a drink here.
So we will support some of the heritage sites here. Is there anything else the government is doing on the project? What's the third thing you And how does this CCFG project help the government in this
Do you like it?